Question 4, Willie Rennie.
I know we have our differences, but I want to thank the First Minister for her work and personal efforts over the last 3 months. Daily press conferences and extensive behind-the-scenes work will have taken a toll on her. I want to thank ministers as well, who have made a special effort to work with MSPs from all parties. It's the type of cooperation that people should expect at a time of a national crisis. So I think we should all thank them for that effort. I support the return to full-time schooling, but it's the last few days before the end of term. Teachers are exhausted. So can the First Minister tell them whether they will get a break and have enough time and resource to prepare for the new setup for full-time education? Teachers are anxious. Will they have access to testing? And what about teachers and children who are shielding? Will they be returning to full-time schooling in August?
First Minister.
Firstly, can I thank Willie Rennie for his opening comments. I and ministers don't need thanks. We're simply doing our jobs. But his comments do give me the opportunity to place on record today my heartfelt thanks to everybody working behind the scenes within the Scottish Government, because they have put in a shift and a half, and that is an understatement, and I will be forever grateful to them for all the work they have been doing. On the substance of the question, yes, of course, teachers will get a break. They have been working very hard throughout all of this. And I want to be very clear. Well, firstly, I want to thank teachers and councils for the work they have done to make sure that we do have the contingency of blended learning, because we may need it. And I want to be very clear about that. We have no certainties with this virus, and if we see a resurgence nationally or locally, that model may be needed. So that has not been wasted work, and I think it's really important that nobody suggests that it has been. And my thanks go to them. Of course, they need a break, like everybody needs a break. But over this period, and John Swinney's been having discussions with teachers just this morning, and that will continue through the Education Recovery Group, making sure that the commitment that we have to return to full-time education in August, that all of the work that needs to be done to bring that about is achieved, is the hard work of the next period. Now, partly that is work for all of us, because the prerequisite is that we keep the virus suppressed, and we've all got a role to play in that. But the other safety measures that need to be put in place, and that will include the particular arrangements around physical distancing, and also testing. So I absolutely believe that there is a big role for testing in assuring teachers and parents of the safety of schools. But the details of that is the work that we will now do, that the Deputy First Minister will lead, to make sure that before schools go back, teachers, parents and young people themselves have confidence in the safety of the education that they will be having.
Willie Rennie.
I thank the First Minister for that answer, and we do need that detail as soon as possible, because they do need as much certainty as possible so that they can get that break and they can be ready for August. But I want to move on to something I've asked repeatedly about in the last period. It's about childcare, especially over the summer, for thousands of parents returning to work. If parents are being asked by the government to return to work, the government has a duty to ensure there is enough childcare for them. The First Minister knows I'm cautious because I want people to be safe, but this new plan remains disjointed. Why are parents being asked to go back to work by the government when childminders and nurseries will stay closed for another 3 weeks on a full-time basis? Why are outdoor children's summer clubs and activities not allowed to open for another 3 weeks? Parents need the detail because they are returning to work from now. When are they going to get that detail?
First Minister.
Well, firstly, in the spirit of agreement and consensus, can I say Willie Rennie is right to raise this issue. I said last week, and it's something I don't relish saying, because it is not the position anybody in my position wants to be in, but there are imperfections in how we do things right now, given the nature of what we are dealing with. We are trying to align these plans as much as possible, and while the slightly slower pace out of lockdown we're taking in Scotland is for public health reasons, there is also an objective there about trying to align as far as possible, if not perfectly, the return to work with the build-up of childcare again. So can I say to Willie Rennie, though childminders are open, although still with restrictions on their operation, outdoor nurseries are also able to be open. What I've announced today envisages the opening of all early learning and childcare from the 15th of July, and clearly that will be to some extent dependent on individual provider arrangements, and initially I would imagine capacity will be restricted, but that will build up again. What we also did last week, again, it wasn't the driving motivation, was open up the extended household model, which does open the possibility for some informal childcare. I had hoped we might be able to extend that by today, but we have to do a little bit more work just to understand the impacts of that. But I would hope this time next week we will extend that model a bit further. Now, does all of that add up to an absolutely perfect plan? I readily concede that it doesn't. I'm not sure perfection in any of this, given what we're dealing with right now, is possible, although we strive for it where we can. But we will continue to try to make sure that these different pieces are aligned as far as possible. And we absolutely understand the importance for parents of having appropriate childcare for their children as they increasingly go back to work.